I said it before, I'll say it again tonight. King Charles should strip them of all their remaining titles and cast them out from any connection to the royal family.
He's basically thrown out and banished to the countryside where he will live in Norfolk.
He says accusations about him have become a distraction from the royal family.
Many questions about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's finances emerging over the last 12 months.
This is full disgrace and pretty much unprecedented as far as we can see.
The affairs of the royal family tells you that we are living in quite bizarre time.
The buzzer rang at 3 a.m. Again. In a small apartment connected directly to Prince Andrew's rooms, a young valet stirred from sleep, already knowing what awaited him. Not a security emergency, not urgent royal business. The Prince's Jack Russell needed to go outside, and heaven forbid His Royal Highness should handle it himself. This wasn't just one bad night. According to former palace staff who've finally broken their silence, this was life serving the Queen's second son. While the public saw charming smiles and confident waves from Buckingham Palace balconies, those who worked behind the scenes witnessed something entirely different, something they kept quiet about for decades, until now. Dan Otway spent years as a chef in the royal kitchens, preparing meals for various members of the Windsor family. His recent revelations have sent shockwaves through royal watchers everywhere. Of all the royals he served, one stood out for all the wrong reasons. Prince Andrew wasn't just difficult. He was, in Otway's carefully chosen words, much more demanding than any of his relatives. The chef contrasted this sharply with Kate Middleton, who would bring her children to meet kitchen staff after meals, expressing genuine gratitude for their work. But Andrew, that was a different story entirely. The valet with the 3 a.m. dog-walking duties wasn't alone in his frustration. Former security officers who worked night shifts recall finding him in the palace gardens, smoking cigarettes and muttering complaints just to stay awake. These weren't isolated incidents. Night after night, year after year, the pattern continued. One officer remembered the valet's dark humor about hoping Andrew's upcoming ski holiday might provide some permanent relief from his duties. It was gallows humor, but it captured something deeper, a resentment that had spread quietly through Andrew's household staff like a virus.
What's happened with Andrew losing his title and now her losing Duchess of York, it just proves that the York brand is totally toxic.
Pressure really mounting up on Prince Andrew, having already given up the use of his royal titles.
Andrew Windsor is spending his last weeks at Royal Lodge ranting to himself.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been stripped of the last of his royal titles in a final blow for the former royal.
Andrew came under scrutiny over his contacts to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
So damaging about this email is that it actually highlights the cynicism in which she's approached this.
The hierarchy at Buckingham Palace operated like a medieval court frozen in time. Junior staff ate separately from senior officials, using microwaves, while their superiors enjoyed traditional meals served by white-gloved footmen. Even the stairwells had unspoken rules about who could pass whom and when. Most who entered this world stayed for decades, bound by pensions, housing, and an identity wrapped entirely around serving the crown. This system created perfect conditions for silence. When questioning a prince's behaviour could cost you everything, most chose to say nothing at all. Charlotte arrived at the palace as a young housemaid, eager to serve the royal family. She left with her confidence shattered. Her accounts, later shared with British newspapers, painted a disturbing picture of Andrew's temperament. She described him shouting over the tiniest imperfections, a microscopic gap in bedroom curtains so small she could barely see it herself. His voice would echo down the halls, leaving her in tears. Those who worked alongside Charlotte confirmed her experiences weren't unique. Andrew's temper was legendary among staff, unpredictable and explosive. But perhaps nothing captured the public's attention quite like the revelation about his stuffed animals. Former Royal Protection Officer Paul Page testified in court about Andrew's specific instructions for arranging his collection of soft toys. A laminated diagram reportedly showed each bear's exact position on the bed. If the arrangement wasn't perfect, the prince might fly into a rage. What sounded almost comical to outsiders was deadly serious to staff who faced his wrath over misplaced teddy bears.
And this is largely due to leaked emails that have come from Ghislaine Maxwell.
But it's just the attachment and the fact that he's so precise on where he needs them to be.
They all used to belong to his daughters when they were little, and they've all got, they've all got memories, or maybe he's got attachment issues.
How he funds the Royal Lodge, which has a significant rent, is pretty much a mystery now.
I think the problem is the level of connection that Andrew seems to have to these bears.
Does he cuddle them up at night? Does he need them to keep his bed warm?
The roots of this behaviour ran deep. Long before adulthood, warning signs appeared. Former grooms and royal employees have described a child who pushed boundaries from the earliest age. Stories circulated about stable workers who allegedly dealt with young Andrew's cruelty toward horses by dunking him headfirst into a manure heap. While that specific tale remains unverified, its persistence speaks volumes about how Andrew was viewed by those who worked closest to the family. At Gordonstoun, the austere Scottish boarding school, Andrew's behaviour earned him unflattering nicknames from classmates. Teachers noted he could turn on the charm when it suited him, but was equally known for mockery and sudden outbursts. His treatment of younger brother Edward was described by early biographers as domineering, establishing patterns that would define his adult relationships. The contrast with his siblings became increasingly stark over the years. Charles developed a reputation for learning staff members' names and showing genuine courtesy. Anne, though direct and no-nonsense, treated her team with professional respect. Edward spoke to household workers with consistent kindness. But Andrew? Veterans of the royal household had a saying. Working for him was like walking on eggshells that had already been cracked. One former staff member who dealt with Andrew occasionally put it bluntly. He was arrogant, he was rude, he was bumptious, and I don't take that from anybody. This individual claims to have given as good as they got, despite colleagues warning such behaviour would lead to dismissal. Their response? Bullies don't tell anybody. The protection officers assigned to Andrew occupied a unique position. Present for everything, responsible for nothing beyond his physical safety. They weren't there to judge his choices or question his company.
He's living in disgrace. He was stripped of his royal duties, and part of that is he's not really being paid by the monarchy anymore because he doesn't complete any royal duties.
It's the loss of the privilege that goes along with a royal title. That's really the most significant one, is the loss of his home. So
to be simply Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor with no letters after his name, no styles before his name, and to lose those military connections as well will really sting.
The layers of duplicity and shallowness, this is a new low.
There is a no-holds-barred, warts-and-all tell-all story waiting to be shared with the world.
Several have spoken anonymously about noticing things that felt off. Last-minute trips, unusual meetings, people who appeared and vanished quickly. Nothing concrete at the time, but enough to create unease when later scandals erupted. This brings us to the allegations that would ultimately destroy Andrew's public standing. His friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and the accusations from Virginia Giuffre transformed whispered palace complaints into front-page headlines. Andrew has consistently denied all wrongdoing, most notably in his disastrous 2019 BBC interview, where he insisted Giuffre's account was false. Yet in 2022, he chose to settle her civil lawsuit with no admission of liability. British media reported the settlement could have reached £12 million, reportedly funded with help from his mother, the late Queen. It was a move widely interpreted as avoiding the spectacle of a public trial. When you connect these dots, the domestic tyranny described by staff, the childhood patterns of entitlement, the adult allegations of far more serious misconduct, a troubling picture emerges. Here was a man who lived his entire life insulated from consequences. Where other royals balanced privilege with duty, Andrew apparently saw only the privilege. Where others earned loyalty through respect, Andrew demanded obedience through rank. The palace structure itself enabled this dynamic. Financial dependence, rigid hierarchy, and a culture that prized discretion above all else created perfect conditions for problematic behaviour to flourish unchecked. The system wasn't designed to confront a misbehaving prince. It was designed to protect the institution at all costs. Today, stripped of military titles, royal patronages, and the right to use His Royal Highness in any official capacity, Andrew exists in a strange limbo. No longer quite royal, never quite civilian.
Ever-evolving soap opera, that is, of course, what's happening over at Royal Lodge.
King Charles has begun stripping his brother Andrew of his titles, including Prince. He has also been told to leave his royal residence.
King Charles is battling with Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson to convince the Yorks to move out of the Royal Lodge.
Prince Andrew never really leaves the news, but there's been a sort of tsunami of coverage over the last couple of weeks.
The only declared income that we know of is a £20,000 Royal Navy pension.
King Charles is very keen to move Andrew and his ex-wife Fergie on. He doesn't want them to live there anymore.
As more former staff members reach retirement age, freed from fears of dismissal or lost pensions, additional stories continue to emerge. Each revelation adds another piece to a puzzle the palace spent decades trying to hide. The man who once demanded perfect teddy bear arrangements now faces a very different kind of judgment from history. The staff who once served in silence are finding their voices. Their accounts reveal not just one difficult prince, but an entire system that allowed his behaviour to continue unchecked for far too long. They paint a picture of privilege without accountability, power without restraint, and a household where loyalty flowed only upward while consequences rarely flowed down. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If these are the stories former staff feel comfortable sharing publicly, what remains unspoken? How many more Charlottes suffered in silence? How many more valets lost sleep to midnight dog walks? How many protection officers noticed troubling patterns but felt powerless to act? The palace walls that once guaranteed discretion are developing cracks. Through those cracks, we're glimpsing a reality far removed from the fairy tale the public was sold. A reality where a prince's temper mattered more than a servant's dignity, where stuffed animals held more importance than staff well-being, and where the price of speaking truth to power was often too high to pay. As more time passes and more tongues loosen, we may discover that what we've learned so far represents only the beginning. The full story of life inside Andrew's household, and what it reveals about the monarchy itself, may still be waiting to emerge from behind those famous palace gates. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.